Can you see me?
Yes, I got you. Well, first of all,
Yeah.
thank you so much for doing this. And I love the way you had a little poll going to determine whether or not I was worthy of your time.
There was never any doubt that I would do it.
I
It
figured
was,
as much, but I got the full Penner experience, so I appreciate it.
it was just for fun and to include other people so that
Yeah,
they might be interested in joining us or at least watching whatever it is that happens. Um,
exactly. Yeah.
uh, and I'm very happy to talk to you. Cusumano
Cusumano,
is
that's
the name
right.
of it's the name of the woman who runs the Tribeca Festival, where
I
I'm
did
working
not
with,
know that.
Cara Cusumano.
Gotcha. I know there's the
Hmm.
characters on The Sopranos, but
Who the Cusumanos? I forgot on The Sopranos.
they're like neighbors, I think. I've actually haven't watched The Sopranos in a long time, but I just remember that being the connection everyone always make. But
Yeah, I had the pleasure. Okay, so now I'm going to start to count how many names I drop. I think that I'm a name dropper. Now, I didn't realize this,
I
and
can
no
keep a
one has
running
said, like,
tally.
yeah, let's keep it tally. You're such
Yeah.
a name dropper. The other day I said, like, am I a name dropper? Maybe I am. But in this case, it's a good name to drop because I had the distinct pleasure, honor really, of talking with little Stevie Van Zandt, who plays Sil, you know,
Mhm.
on The Sopranos. There's a new documentary about him and his whole career in life, and he
Mhm.
showed it at the Tribeca Festival, and I was the one able to interview him and the producers and director afterwards. So that was really cool to meet
Nice.
him. Yeah. All right. Now you want advice.
Yes.
Tell
So
me, tell me, my son, what can I give you advice about?
so I think it's going to be running the gamut. I've got some questions maybe about storytelling. I mean, obviously, I think anyone who's taking the time to watch this knows you are one of the best, if not the best storyteller in Survivor history. But just yeah, I want to get your take on what separates a good story from a great story, and then get into maybe how someone can break into the industry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, well, what separates a good story from a great story? What a good question. I mean, I think a lot about stories, actually. Um, because I not only anyway, I think a lot about stories. And stories are sort of ways to help us process being human, really, right? Which isn't a story. Being human, there's no story. There's no, I mean, you can say it began when he was born and it ended when he died, but that's very facile, kind of, beginning, middle, and end. It's true. Because how about when his parents met? Did it begin then? How about when the grieving, maybe the story just begins after he's died, the story. And the story is we have stories to help, as I say, to help us process humanity. And you can have a story about anything. I mean, I'm sitting here in my office drinking a beer, so you can anthropomorphize a beer. There once was a beer who, came all the way from, this is a Chinese beer
Yeah.
or Thai beer, came all the way from Thailand. And you could tell the adventures of the beer, but you would tell the adventures of the beer in human terms,
I think you
you
just
know,
came with the next Pixar movie, Beer.
dude.
Yeah.
There was what was that movie called? Sausage Party. It's a pretty funny movie,
Oh God,
right?
yeah.
Right. And so, what would it like to know that your life is going to end when somebody eats you? It's funny.
Mhm.
The conceit of that movie is actually pretty funny. Anyway, but they have to make it like human emotions for humans to care. When we watch a movie, when we watch Survivor, you or anything that has a story, you are identifying with the character, you are empathizing with the character, ideally, and the beauty of the humanity is that we have this thing called empathy. And so that's why stories work, because you can feel for the character and project yourself into the story. Oh shit, that is scary. I'm scared. You're sitting there watching a scary movie and you are scared. It's actually what's happening to you, even though you're sitting safely in a theater in your house, you are actually physically becoming scared, which only happens through empathy and through good, this is visual and oral sound storytelling. So I guess what separates a good story, I mean, I love your question, because I would think like, well, what makes a good story as opposed to a great story? I'm not sure I know the difference between a good story and a great story. I guess it's how it hits you, right?
Yeah.
That's why some people love Pixar movies. Those are great. Those are great stories. And some people are like, I don't know, give me The Godfather anytime, or give me something, I don't know. That's a matter of taste, right? How we're wired and what we like through because we're wired this way or that way. And then you have a story that really speaks to you. I was just thinking, I don't know why. I was thinking about Saltburn. I don't know if you've seen this movie. It's a good movie made by the woman who made Single White Female. And it's kind of a similar, like, do you like the bad guy? Is the bad guy the good guy? It's a fascinating movie, kind of a sick movie, which I like. And the protagonist is really the antagonist. It's a fascinating movie and a fascinating story. It's not for everybody's taste. Not everybody liked Saltburn. Not everybody likes Single White Female. So that's a movie that speaks to my taste. And, if you love movies about beer, that's what you want to see a story about. There are not that many movies, about beer that are going to
Untapped
satisfy.
market.
Yeah, Untapped, get it?
I
Yeah,
I
see,
got I'm glad you caught that.
I got it. So a good story is one that, look, a story we could break down how stories work, how Western stories work, which are different from kind of how Eastern stories. I don't want to get myself into trouble by generalizing, stupidly. Excuse me. Stories in ancient Greece worked very differently than stories do today. Stories in sub-Saharan Africa, and again, this is a generalization, work differently. In some ways, they're very much the same. They are human experience. They're the they're the journey, right? They're two basics. There's so many stories, but people say, well, a story. The story is a stranger arrived and something changed. Or I went on a journey and something changed, a journey of discovery. Somebody comes and you find out something about yourself. You find out that the world you thought was perfect sure isn't, because you see it through a different perspective. I mean, we could break down the many, many, many different tropes, really, of Western storytelling. And not that I know them all, but we've all seen most stories. And then is the world fascinating enough? Are the characters true enough, real enough? And when you're a kid, oh, it's about a bird who goes to look for his mother and finds his mother, and that's a happy ending. Those stories only work when you're a kid, or you're telling the stories to a kid. We want much more complex stories. I like a more complex story. I don't know. I could blather on and on. There's no
No, no,
advice.
it's all
The,
good stuff, and
the
I
advice
appreciate
is
that.
the advice is write, not so much write what you know, but write what is what write true emotions,
Yeah,
right? And the beauty, and I've said this for many, 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 many years, because my profession is writing fiction stories, right? Fictional stories, or adapting real life. And earlier I said, real life isn't a story. Okay, so you're going to make a movie of somebody's life. How the hell do you tell the story? They lived 62 years or whatever it was. That's a lot of living, and you got to boil it down and have highs and lows, and
yeah.
and all those things. Um, so I don't know. Maybe I lost my train of thought. What was I? I was
No,
hoping to make a really good point.
there's definitely some nuggets of wisdom there. Yeah.
Mm.
Um, would love to also know then, since you talk so much about like characters and honesty, like what do you think is the core to crafting a really fleshed out three-dimensional character?
Well, there's always these questions of nature. Again, these are old psychological tropes almost, right? Nature or nurture. Where do you come from? And the ideal is to avoid the cliche. Okay, he's a 62-year-old Jew from New York, and this is what he's going to be like. You want to flip that on its head, as opposed to, well, he's a 24-year-old hillbilly, and that's what he's going to be like. You want to have truth, because everybody knows that people are complex. If they're not, it's because they're either stupid or ignorant, which is not the same thing, right? A non-complex person has lived a life that makes them ignorant of the rest of the world. And that's fascinating. You could start a character ignorant, but nice, for want of a better word, or ignorant but mean, and then they discover the world and shit, they change. And I'm talking about in big block letters now. I'm not talking about really subtleties. You want a world that's fascinating. Ideally, you can bring the audience or your reader into a place they've never been. They might even think they know it, but they don't know all the details. Many, many of the best books and movies take you into a world. Oh, gangsters. Well, The Godfather was a gangster story, but it was really a family story. What's it like to actually hunt a shark in Jaws? How would a family with a child who can't hear survive in the world? This is, A Quiet Place is a great metaphor for how do families dealing with disabilities face the world, and how does the world face them, and the challenges that they experience. So if you can find not profound truth, but be profoundly truthful about the world and about the characters' emotions and why they feel this way, why they are consumed with rage, why they are a big wise ass, why they have no sense of humor, and what that does. That's very funny for a character who has no sense of humor. The audience will laugh at that character. Everybody knows that playing a stupid person with no sense of humor can be hilariously funny or maddeningly infuriating because the person doesn't get it. So you try to, and I guess we all lean on writing about people we know, right? I'm gonna base this character on this person because you know their voice. You know how they're going to react. You
Yeah.
know that it's funny if that person, your character, acts like this person. Could you put this person in a movie? Or you write it for an actor. I mean, this is the cheapest, easiest thing to do, and it was often done in the old days of Hollywood. This is a Cary Grant movie, write for Cary Grant. When I was acting on sitcoms, there was like a writer who they put it through their computer. They would say, well, Jonathan, what do you think Jonathan would say? And some guy had my voice, you know. I mean, he didn't have my voice, but he was like, he's the one who wrote the jokes that I liked more than anything else.
Mhm.
They gave me to him or him to me. Does that answer your question at all?
Absolutely, yeah. And like I think, yeah, basing it on the world you know, the people that you observed. I will give you a half point for Cary Grant as a name drop, but you missed so many opportunities to name drop in that.
No, that was not a name drop. That was
Okay,
just a name
all right,
drop.
we won't
Okay.
count that one.
Yeah, here, I'm going to name drop for you,
All
right?
right.
This is an old joke. You ready? Say a famous actor or performer that you like that was in town recently. Go ahead, just say, oh, I saw
Oh,
some.
that was in town, like in Chicago, or
You and I are talking, and you say, you
oh,
know who's in town?
oh, Seth Meyers.
Seth.
Yeah.
Seth Fucker was in town, and you didn't call me. Seriously, you saw him?
I've seen him at Second City, actually. Yeah,
Kind of shit. Oh, Seth. Yeah, sure.
yeah.
Sometimes he slides into town and he doesn't call me. I'm gonna have his ass. Okay, so that's a bad version of name dropping.
Okay.
What I did with Stevie Van Zandt, that's not a bad version. You mentioned The Sopranos. I
Yeah.
thought it was interesting that I happened to, believe me, I was honored to meet this guy
Yeah.
and ask him a couple, I hope, semi-intelligent questions. So that's that's name dropping. Cary Grant is just an old
That's just
name.
a reference. I get it. Yeah.
Most people listening to this are like, who the fuck is Cary Grant? You know Cary Grant. If you don't know Cary Grant, why are you listening to me?
Yeah. One thing I would love, based on what you were saying too, I want to take the two very similar movies that we talked about, The Godfather and Sausage Party. And obviously, you're not a gangster and you're not a sausage, as far as I'm aware. How would you, as a writer, approach that story coming from those two worlds that really you're not a part of?
Well, it's a great question. I mean, The Godfather was a novel
Yeah.
first. Let's take The Godfather, written by Mario Puzo, and he gets credit on the screenplay with Francis Ford Coppola, who wrote and directed. And so he based it, apparently, to some degree, on a simple family dynamic that is the same dynamic, I think, like you find in Jaws, right? There's three characters. There's one who is purely volatile. He's pure physicality. That's Sonny and that's Quint, right? Then you've got the very, very super cerebral. These are the three brothers and the three guys chasing the shark. Then you've got Tom Hagen, who's the Robert Duvall character. He's the adopted son, who's the personal attorney, right? And he's totally cerebral. We got to make the deal, Sonny. We got to make the deal, whatever it takes, okay? And then you've got the middle, which is Richard Dreyfuss. Oh, I could hit it with a thing, and I could do this, and I could put myself in a cage, and I could. And then you've got the middle way, who wants to be smart about it, but knows sometimes you got to fucking blow the shark up with a gun and shoot it. And that's Roy Scheider, and that's Al Pacino. And Al Pacino, who starts off quite naively, becomes the actual godfather because he tries to be peaceful, he tries to be intelligent and negotiate, and sometimes he hits like a hammer. That's a classic triangle of mind, body, and spirit that you would create out of three characters, right? Mind, body, and the third way, which combines the body, the lust, the violence, the passion with the intellect, which is not the way to move through life successfully either. Okay. So that's a classic kind of story. The sausage party story, I don't remember as clearly, right? I don't. But what I love about Sausage Party, and apparently Seth Rogen, I saw it when it came out and laughed my ass off. He's a big stoner, and I'm sure he and his friends sit around getting stoned, and they're like, "What if every fucking thing in the supermarket was alive? Oh my god!" And they're gonna die. It's an existential comedy, right? We're all gonna die. What's that? What does that do to you? So some people, and it's the same thing. It's the same thing that we all go through. If you and I, we didn't have to get stoned, but if we say, okay, so I'm 62, what have I got? 30 years left? If I'm lucky or unlucky, I've got 30 years because that means I'm 92. I'm really fucking old at 92. You're how old are you? You're
I'm
30.
35.
Yeah, okay. I guess I was within 1 year, right? You're
Perfect.
35. Okay. So you've got a whole lifetime and they're going to make incredible, strides in medicine. Let's say you got 60 years ahead of you. Maybe. But the truth is that a plane could drop on either one of us tomorrow. We
Yep.
don't know how much time we have.
Yeah.
What are we doing with our lives? Every story is who am I and what the fuck I'm doing with my life? Am I my father's son? Is that where my obligations are? Am I my child's father, and that's where my obligations are to move forward in the world? And this is what we all struggle with, and that's the human condition that we want to see on screen. We want to see our concerns reflected to us, and we want to see there are other ways to think about the world. There are other approaches. And this is why Survivor is so brilliant. This is one of the things I was going to say. I've been asked about this for years, right? I love reality TV, though I don't watch a hell of a lot of reality TV because I think it's very manufactured. It's not reality. But in reality, the actual reaction that people have, the actual way they move through the world is so much more fascinating and nuanced than what a writer would ever come up with. Not ever, but often comes up with, right? Certainly on TV. So when you see the actual behavior of, and the first thing comes to mind is crazy Mike Skupin, not later in his life, but the first time he showed up, smearing the blood. And I mean, like people were fascinated. Rudy, people were
Yeah.
fascinated, you know, and many the great characters of Survivor, because they're just people trying to fucking survive,
Yeah.
which is what all of us are doing. You're putting a pressure cooker on this insane island with a bunch of strangers who are trying to kill you, and you're trying to kill them or kill something to stay alive. I mean, it's a brilliant conceit, and you can sit there and say, I would do the same thing. Or why did you do that? What's wrong with you? And you hope that you can understand why they did it. You know, you're exhausted. We're all human. That's the beauty of Survivor. It really does show us as human beings.
That
And
was
that's what you
something I was
go ahead.
that was something I was kind of curious about was as a screenwriter, like your take on reality television in general. But I am curious too, like, have your experience on 3 seasons of Survivor, has that influenced the way you write in any way? Because I mean, obviously you're exposed to people like Cowboy, people like artists, like all these different people that you probably would not have encountered too much in the real world.
Yeah, that's true. I love that. I mean, I'm not sure I'm sure it has. I couldn't tell you, yes, it changed my writing by doing this, that, or the other. I couldn't say that.
Mhm.
I know that being a screenwriter affected my game on Survivor and
Mhm.
my understanding of how the 16 episode arc
Mhm.
worked and where they were at any given day.
Yeah.
What how that worked. But I learned some of that both on the island and watching the show,
Yeah.
and able to say this is a how are stories, at least
Mhm.
classic stories, structured, and was able to call it within a day almost every time when the merge was going to happen, when the
Yeah.
first tribe switch was going to happen, things like that. And so that was helpful, or at least it made me feel that I had some sense of control over the game.
Mhm.
On this day, some crazy shit's going to happen because that's when they needed to happen for the
Yeah.
16 hours of TV that they're creating.
Yeah.
Meeting Cowboy and guys like that, it was great. You're right. I met a lot of people who I wouldn't have met otherwise, and they met me for better and for worse. And that's one of the beauties of the competition like that, of sport, of games, of reality TV. I've become very good friends with Yul. We're
Yeah.
still in touch, and I consider him a dear friend, and I hope he feels the same way. And that's kind of it, really. Other folks I'm friendly with, I would say, and if I saw them, we'd quickly, find a way to go have a beer together or something.
Yeah.
But, you know, um, doing it was really a lark for me. I never thought that I would get on the show because I worked for CBS and I was
Oh,
an actor, never a particularly famous actor. I wasn't, but I had been on a CBS series. I had been on a bunch of things and was known to some degree, but
yeah.
obviously not known enough to stop them from putting me on TV. And now, of course, they put some famous people on the show, and Lisa
Yeah.
Wells
Of course. Yeah.
did great.
I know we have a limited time, so I don't want to do too much on Survivor, but I am curious based on what you were saying about being aware of the story arc and where certain things would come into play. Were you ever conscious on the island, like as you're playing the game, interact with people, of where the story was and where you thought the audience might want it to go?
No, Was I? No. I mean, I used that with Lisa. I tried to get her to come over to my side. And the truth is she was ready to come to my side and I missed the cue. I missed it. That was my mistake. I had been effective in my working on her, talking with her, very effective. But I was so exhausted from being chased around on the island, and I literally said, like, I just give me a day to fucking get my head on straight. And Lisa, who had no obligation to say to me, "You don't have a day. You need to make a commitment right now, or you're going to lose this game."
Yeah.
Which she had no obligation to say that to me. Why would she? Um, didn't say that to me, and I missed the turnoff. In the same way that I didn't say to Adam, "You are not hearing me. You'll as the idol. If you want me to work with you, you need to work with me. Let's make some." Because I didn't want to say that to him.
Yeah.
Part of me wanted to fucking take a hatchet to him. I have no problem with Adam now, but I mean that's how I was feeling. And I think part of Lisa probably felt like I mean, I don't know if she felt that she could do better
Yeah.
against um uh Denise and
Yeah.
Scoopin and Malcolm
Mhm.
that she could against me and Carter. Carter was not a threat, but I would have won that game. I really believe that if I'd made it to the final three, that I would have won. So maybe she was like, okay, I'm giving him a chance, and I gave him the chance, but I didn't really tell him take your chance or you can't do it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never spoken to her about it.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah. And I think it's one of those things where you look at Cook Islands and the structure there, the I-24 comeback story, I think, is probably the biggest reason why it ended up being a popular season. And of course, you were kind of the kingmaker there, like you and Yule in different ways. But I mean, there's also Survivor 50. I'm just saying, could be there. But
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm probably on some list somewhere as I mean, no one has approached me.
yeah,
What did I read the other day? Like Rob Mariano's already
the
making alliance.
yeah,
Maybe and and certainly if I got the call,
yeah.
um, um, I mean, I can't sit here and say like I'd make pregame alliances because I haven't really done that.
Don't want to
But I'm
expose you.
also
Yeah,
not an idiot. I'm not a fool. You don't. We always had a saying on the islands like if you don't know who the vote is for, it's for you,
yeah,
right? It's as simple as
yeah,
that. You don't know the way which way the wind's turning because brother, it's your turn in the barrel.
yeah.
And I'm not gonna if I was lucky or unlucky enough to get invited to play Survivor 50 and could get out of the wheelchair by then, then I'd probably do it. But I
Okay.
wouldn't do it without having reached out to somebody,
Yeah.
right? Or hope that somebody
Okay.
reached out to me. I don't know.
I will say that
Yeah, sure. Dude, 4 years old. I'll be 64 years old when Survivor 50 gets
yeah,
played. That's fucking old. Now, I know there's probably going to be people older than me at that point, and there's all these
yeah,
newbies, and who knows what the game is going to be like. I really honestly don't follow the game at this point. I don't.
yeah, fair.
So again, not for lack of some snobbery about new Survivor versus old Survivor. I don't know what new Survivor is, but I know clearly that there is a version of Survivor being played by a generation of folks who have watched Survivor.
Yeah.
And the producers, I would never second guess Probst and the producers. They're
Mhm.
very, very brilliant at what they do. And it's easy for us to sit in judgment, or would be easy for us to sit in judgment. Um, they're doing something right, you know, and just going in for the adventure. I mean, that's what I did. I want to be Robinson Crusoe. I'll play as hard as I can. I'm going to have as much fun as I can, which is what I did. But I want to give you advice. That's what we're
Yes,
here for.
yes,
A
yes.
few minutes. So what are
All
you
right.
married? Do you have kids? Are you what tell me
I am
about
engaged right now. Yes,
fantastic.
yes. And yeah, so I think I've just kind of been the last couple months in this spot where corporate world, I have tried it out. I hate it. Like I really, like I can't be getting emotionally invested going for jobs that I know would still make me miserable anyway. So I figure I know the writing industry, it's still, cutthroat in so many ways, but
What do you want to
at least,
write? What do you
exactly. At least
what do
I'd
you
be emotionally investing in something meaningful. So yeah, like I would love
what
to
do you
know, like what are ways that someone who, especially someone 35 years old, have a lot of writing experience. I put on comedy shows at Second City. I've done a lot of stand up, but what are like, I guess, the ways to get my work into the hands of the people that can do something with it?
what is your work? I'm asking, what do you write?
Yeah,
What do you want to manifest?
I so right now, like my concrete stuff, the best stuff I have in my arsenal right now is sketch comedy. But Brendan and I are working on a pilot we're both excited about. So hopefully,
Who's
end of the
both?
summer, we might have something more concrete. Yeah. What's that?
You said we're both excited about. Who is that?
It's my friend David. He and I run a
David.
sketch show together. Yeah. That's my name drop. David Zapata.
Where are you now? Where are we
We're
speaking to you?
Chicago. Chicago.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
Just town so big, you got that. No, that's New York. You have to name it twice. Um, I guess, look, I came up at a very different time in the business, but I also was um I mean, we always say, and I don't mean to be, I'm not going to be discouraging. I'm not.
Mhm.
If you have to do it, that's the only way you can do
Yes.
it, right? If there's a choice, right? This is a cliche, but it's a cliche that happens to be true. If
Yes.
you do something else, if there's a version of your life that you are not writing or acting or singing or dancing or playing the piano or whatever your means of artistic expression is,
Yeah.
and it could be many means, but if you don't have to do that, for
Mhm.
God's sake, do something else. If you can be
Yes.
happy in a corporation, if you can be happy digging a ditch, God, do it because you'll be happy. That's
Yes.
really the point. If you
I've
could be happy not doing it,
yeah. I mean
excuse me,
I've
I've been
said
drinking
that
beer and
to
burping.
I said that literally to so many of my friends. Like, I wish I could find some fulfillment in writing about lawn care, writing about software, whatever. It just like I'm a copywriter by day, but this just like I've got another 30 plus years before I can retire, and I don't want to
Well,
be
I
doing
had an
that.
acting teacher. I had an acting teacher once who said, I don't know if it was great advice or not, but he said something like, don't make your day job theater adjacent,
Hmm.
right? If you want to be an actor, don't be a fucking acting teacher at a school,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
If you want to be a director, don't, I don't know. I don't mean to go on. It's as
Sure.
simple as that. So the first thing that comes to my mind is, you may be getting your writing Jones fix by copywriting lawn care. Did you actually say lawn care?
Yes.
Okay. And you can say, well, I'm writing,
Hmm.
I'm doing it. Now, I'm not trying to talk you into quitting your job. I'm not. What I'm saying is, there are reasons that actors wait tables,
Yeah.
right? Because it frees up their time. They leave their job at home when they're done and they go fucking wait a table. They make a bit of money and then they go and they're actors.
Yeah.
If you're writing, if I'm a writer, I'm writing Hallmark cards, I'm writing copy for lawn care magazine, whatever it is that may be, you might consider and say, no, you know what? I want to write sketch comedy. I
Yeah.
need to get a job so that all I have to think about is sketch comedy. Because
Yeah.
I guarantee you, my friend, my Seth Rogen appreciating friend, there are sketch comedy writers out there who are writing sketch comedy
Yeah.
24 hours a day.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe they're engaged. Maybe they've got kids. Maybe they're getting married. Maybe you can do all that while you're making a life for yourself. And again, I'm not trying to be discouraging.
No.
What I'm trying to do is give you is just speak reality from my heart. If you're
Yeah.
35 years old and you're giving sketch comedy a little bit of time, okay, and it's a dream, that's not going to be the reality because
Yeah.
the window becomes too much luck based. That the
Yes.
stars have to line up.
Mhm.
If the stars line up, they're only going to line up and then really be aligned if you are working your ass off all the time. And then when the stars line up, they've lined up because you've moved them and luck has come into place.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying you're not doing that. I
Yeah.
don't know what you're doing,
No,
but I know
I
that you are not a successful comedy writer because
yeah.
that's why we're talking, right?
Right.
You're an aspiring person at
Right.
35 years old.
And
And you're
I
coming to a
definitely,
mid crisis. It's a midlife
yeah.
crisis,
Oh
almost
yeah.
the next 5, 10 years. And your fiance is saying, what are we doing here? And
Mhm.
are you really? Because you know you're obviously a very bright, personable person. You
Thank
could
you.
make a lot of money. You could make a lot of money. You could probably find something else.
Mhm.
And if you can't, now you should really hear me. Here's my advice. If you can't find something else, and you have to be brutally honest with yourself,
Mhm.
if you have to do this, if you have to do this, then be happy because you have to do it. That's the way you were born. That's the way you were
Yeah.
made, and you're doing what you got to do. And you're probably not going to get rich and famous. You're not.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I think for me, the
You're
goal
doing
is
what you love and have to do.
exactly the goal is I want to just kind of put stuff out there that I find fulfilling. And at the moment, writing about fertilization is not doing it. So, um,
Okay. But I'm saying you could write
yeah,
about fertilization during the day. That's how you
sure. Oh,
make
yeah.
your money. Because
Exactly. Yeah.
when you go home, you spend an hour a day, your best time of the day is writing your sketch comedy, and
Yeah.
you and your buddy go to the bar and you do your shit
Mhm.
and invite agents and you try to hustle it. But you say, yeah, okay, now we're 45. Now
Yes.
we're 55, and you've met someone who will let you encourage you to follow that dream, and also may know that you're the kind of guy who wants to be married, wants to have a family,
Mhm.
wants to have a normal life, and doesn't want to be working in shitty, stinking
Mhm.
comedy clubs and living in motels and hotels the way that most comedians live. That's the truth. It's a shitty, terrible life,
Yeah.
unless somehow you break through and you're Seth Rogen, who got his wife and his kids later.
Mhm.
And he was first, and he did Freaks and Geeks, and he was out there in Hollywood when he was 16 or whatever it was, which is already a half a lifetime ago for you. He didn't do that.
I know we've got less than a minute here. Do you have a few more minutes if we can hop on just again for like a quick?
I'll give you 5 more minutes.
All right.
Okay.
I'll
So,
send you another link. Thank you.
yep.